Good morning, good afternoon, and good night. What's up everybody, and welcome to my first build video. Today I'm going to be showing off a couple of setups that I use for my main Magicka during PvP. This is a setup that I've taken to calling a Battle Bomber, which I've been playing with and working on pretty much since I began playing PvP on my DK. In addition to the setup that you will be seeing used throughout these clips, I will be going through an alternative final form setup that I've been using and enjoying a lot more recently. I will also include a no proc version if Raven Watch is still your thing. As well, I'm going to keep the clips going so that you can see some of the damage and some of the cool highlights that he's put together. So without any further hype, let's dive right into it, beginning with the sets. Obviously, as stated, this is going to be an offensive heavy build, with which I will be using two light sets in Mother Sorrow and Vicious Death. And trust me, I see the comments, I can feel the eye rolls already just even recording this. How are you surviving in your paper armor? A crit set in PvP? Have you heard about this dirty little secret called Impen? Look guys, I'm going to get to everything and I will cover all of the details of this build from top to bottom. First and foremost, let's begin with turning our paper armor into some upgraded durable cardboard armor. The first big step to this is going to be the Gaze of Sithis, which grants us an additional 4,000 resistances, a big boost to our health, and a lot of health recovery, over 1,000. This is one reason in particular that I really like this setup without Vampire, which all of the Cyrodiil clips that you will see later are actually without Vampire inflicted. That said, I've actually been running him as a stage 3 lately, which was quite difficult for me to adjust to with the increased skill cost and everything. That said, if you want stage 3 to be a bit more tanky with that Undying passive, you can absolutely make it work. I would highly recommend switching to a charge staff, however. That way you can take advantage of that big DK combustion passive that returns Magicka to us every time that we burn an enemy. As well, being at stage 3, you will have the Strike from the Shadows passive for Vampire as well, which, lest we forget, procs off of Misform as well. You don't always have to be sneaking or using invisibility pots to get that buff. Continuing on, we're using Vulcan Scoria Shoulders, heavy throughout all of the clips that you guys are actually going to be seeing here, which makes us a little bit beefier, gives us some more offensive capability with that one-piece pen. To finish off our gear, I am backbarring a Wrath of Elements staff, in my case Ice, which was nerd-honed when all of these clips were collected. It's what I got from Vadishan. I went with it, I was out of transmutes, it worked okay. I have since switched that up to a decisive trait in order to push the Battle Roar passive that gives us back resources as a DK every time that we use our ultimate. Continuing on with the DK buff thread, we're going to be mentioning the World in Ruin passive that gives us 5% flame and poison damage, which is the main reason that we are running Vicious Death now. Vicious Death turns everybody you kill into an exploding inferno and definitely takes advantage of that 5% boost. If you are using Engulfing Flames, which I recommend, that's going to be another 10% flame damage when their buddy ends up dying right next to them. On that backbar staff, I am using a Poison enchant for a bit of extra damage, but it also again takes advantage of that Constitution passive to restore us some standback as well. We're basically trying to take advantage of all the new buffs and boosts that the DK has been given over the last patch. Another good reason for Vicious Death is that it crits now as well, which is why I love the pairing with it for Mother Sorrow. But hey, if you're finding difficulty getting that first kill, I would recommend swapping Vicious Death out for Spinners. This is also our no proc option when you end up pairing it with Mother Sorrow. You should still be able to get a lot of brutal damage out even in some 1vx's, but with Vicious Death, you get somebody down, it just leads to a brutal domino effect that you can go from a 1v3 to just champion over everything. Now, getting to Mother Sorrow and crit and impen, let me throw a little bit of math at you guys. For approximately every 68 points of impen, you will get 1% crit damage resistance with base pen, and if you're running a full 7 impen with gold armor, you will get to about 2209 or 32% crit resistance. And yeah, you could increase it 9% with the CP slottable. That said, who's really running that slottable except the tankiest of boys? Ultimately, with the Fighting Finesse passive, a slottable that we'll be running, you can get 28% damage out of your crits. Again, with 7 gold impen pieces. And we know a lot of people run reinforced on chest. A lot of people have 1 or 2 that are well fitted, possibly divines. This means our crits are going to have that much extra juice behind them. If you're running Channeled Excel, Race Against Time, or even, hey, maybe I've convinced you a bit to try a crit set in PvP, but you want to be even tankier, so you opt for Medusa instead. That Minor Force is going to boost you an extra 10% on top of the 28% that we're given. And if you dare to be a badass and run Backstabber and can get in their flank, you're going to get another 15% on top of that. This will lead to big juicy damage off of your Double Whip, your Deep Breath Second Blast, even your Flames of Oblivion, and definitely your Leap when you can get those guys to crit. With the amount of pen that we will be running, it just leads to some devastating damage. Even if you're just running Spinners and getting that extra 2k pen. And again, we will be using Elemental Drain to proc our Wrath of Elements, so you should be able to whittle down nearly anybody that you come across. As well, Elemental Drain restores more Magicka to help you sustain for further and longer. I'm going to let these clips finish up here, and then we will be going through the menu and the skills to show you a little bit more in depth about how to use and set up this build. Alright, here we go. I hope you guys all enjoyed those clips. So here we are, we're looking at our stats. We are unbuffed. You can see the spell damage is a little bit low, but our spell crit chance is well over 50%. That's kind of the idea, is that we're going with that heavy crit build, that heavy pen to cut into all of those tanky PvP players out there. We're using the Smoke Bear Haunch. This helps our stam recovery with running around. It just makes sure that we are sustaining enough to keep everything going. We're using the Lover's Mundus. Again, I'm very big on penetration and cutting into everybody's armor. We're front barring a Lightning Staff of Vicious Death here. The Lightning Staff, of course, boosts our AoE damage by a big 10%. It turns our heavy attack into an AoE as well, which when paired with the 50% heavy attack boost from Molten Weapons, just ends up making those heavy attacks all that much more brutal. It's a precise trait. Again, pushing that crit. If you want to opt for charge, go ahead. We'll get a little bit more into that in the final form version. Here's that Vadishan staff back bar. Again, with our poison enchant, throughout most of those clips, it was Nirnhone. I've opted for Decisive to take advantage of that Battle Roar passive. Get our resources back every time we leap, every time we use an ulti. Here's our Gaze of Sithis. We're running a lot of Divines here. We are running a Valken Scoria Pauldron at this point. We are in 5 light and 2 heavy with 2 impen between the shoulders and the waist here. We are running Bloodthirsty on our jewelry, as Magicka doesn't have a true class execute. With Molten Whip and being able to get the double damage out of it after building up the Seething Fury stacks, it's still just not quite a full execute, and taking advantage of that extra Bloodthirsty damage after you've whittled somebody so far down, you don't want them to just pop back up with all their healing. That said, we'll go over a couple of changes in our final form version here, and let's go over and take a look at the skills here. Right now, by the way, I do not have Vampire Inflicted. I decided to play him with a little bit without it tonight, which again, I really like this build, taking advantage of the health recovery as a bit more of a heal over time. But let's go over it. Again, I've mentioned Molten Whip already. You build up those Seething Fury stacks by using any of these Ardent Flame abilities here. Right now, I have Burning Embers on. This is a great option if you're solo, running by yourself in Cyrodiil. You get that extra heal every time it drops off. Every time you re-inflict it, you automatically get that burning status effect. You're going to get Magicka back. A good option that I tend to have here in more group play, even in Battlegrounds when I feel confident in my sustain, or that I know there's another healer behind to be able to help keep me up. I really like Burning Talons. It's a bit of a higher, quicker flame dot. It's a little bit more bursty. Your buddies can hit that Ignite synergy that just hits them all that much harder. And yeah, I still run that with Deep Breath at the same time. I know it's a big, heavy Magicka cost, but between the Elemental Drain and particularly if you're using that Charge Staff, it just really... you don't always, you can still end up sustaining with it. We're using Flames of Oblivion to go for some extra bursty damage. If you end up going with Cauterize, I'm going to take that change so personally. No, I really don't care. I hope that this build has maybe opened you up to a few more possibilities, and feel free to change what you want. This is about stimulating a few ideas and just throw some extra options out there that I haven't really seen, but this really does work a lot of the time. That said, you know, coagulating blood is really about the only big bursty heal that you have here. It hits for 8,700 unbuffed. I think it's 9,700 when you get that major sorcery going. You get the extra damage when you are low health. I've easily seen it pop off for 15 to 20k at times when I'm in danger territory. And if you are running igneous shields right here instead of Cinderstorm, then you are getting that major mending, that you pop your igneous, you pop your coagulating blood, it's going to hit for that much more, and you're going to have a decent little damage shield even with Battle Spirit going, and you help out your buddies around you a bit. If you are running stage 3, this is a good spot to have Mist Form in. You can use it for the getaway. I like using it to get into fights more than getting out of fights, but it's a nice quick pop that you can just hit Mist Form, swap bars, and you get that strike from the Shadows passive to give you that much extra damage on top of it. This is our biggest flex spot, that if you want to put Channeled Excel or Race Against Time, maybe you even do like Overflowing Altar. You can see a couple of those clips. I had Proxy Debt here. Just this, I think, is the spot that provides the most flexibility for something that you want to do different outside of changing Embers for Talons. So let me get buffed up and just let you see these stats here before I swap us out and go into our final form and show you what we will be using over there. Alright everyone, here we go. Final form. You can see a little bit of the changes to the stats here. The spell damage has gone up a bit. We've had a big cut into our spell crit. This is a little bit more of a typical setup that I think you would see for a Magicka. Well, that would be wearing 2 light armor sets anyway. We're still using our Smoke Bear Haunch. We're still using the Lover Mundus. We're still using a lot of the same skill setups. Again, if you're stage 3, great spot for Mist Form right here as opposed to Cinderstorm. But let me show you what the main difference here is, that we are using Burning Spellweave. The short is, the necklace was in golden last week, and it was just too big of an opportunity to pass up to really see how this set ends up doing. I know this is one of the most proclaimed Magicka sets out there. People that are more into the weapon and spell damage end up leaning towards this. So I had to give it a shot and check it out. The first big change you might have seen was that I made this an infused trait instead of Bloodthirsty. I left the other 2 Bloodthirsty. I'm not that rich with mats, so... But again, there's Bloodthirsty that helps with the lack of execute for a Magicka, but the infused does help all the way through. It does cut into those damage shields more. Read, Magsorks, beware. We're using less gold than even with Mother Sorrow, and you can see here another big change. I'm running epaulets. I'm running 6 light and 1 heavy, the only heavy being the Gaze of Sithis. I like my paper armor. Leave me alone. The other biggest change that I've already mentioned is that we are using a charge staff as opposed to a precise staff. You can really go either way, but the charge just helps so much out with your sustain, particularly if you're in Battlegrounds, particularly if you're running Vampire. And it's just good on the Magicka. It helps your sustain thanks to that combustion passive so majorly. So let's get this buffed up a little bit and show you the stats here. Fully buffed up with the Burning Spellweave proc. We're sitting at about 4,700 spell damage now. If you are running Vampire and you get that strike from the Shadows, you sit at about 5,080, 5,100, somewhere in there. And let me show you how I like to kind of set up and get into my fights here. Obviously, we get buffed up. If you want to hit Coagulating instead of popping your potion to get that extra health recovery, particularly being without Vamp, totally go for it. I throw down Cinder as I come in. I pop them with that Major Breach. I get Deep Breath going for that burst. I get Embers for that extra damage. Or Engulfing Flames, excuse me. And then I hit him with Embers. I build up those Seething Fury stacks. I get that Deep Breath going. And even drag a Heavy into your whip. Your heavy damage on a DK is still quite huge. When I'm at range, I just get him with the Major Breach and I just stand back and do this. maybe hit my leap as a gap closer, and again, just start all right over again. Get those dots up, keep that pressure on them, chase them down when they end up streaking away from you. And again, the Burning Embers just heals you right up. This Cinder Storm, you can get that stand back very quickly. If somebody is running off, you can try to set it away in front of them. I believe it has about a 25-30 meter range. Let's check that out just to be clear. So I think it's 22 to center, and then you get the 5 meter radius, so it's about 25 meters in case you end up with people running off. Happens all the time, ends up streaking everywhere. But yes, this is our final form. I believe I'm going to sit and play with him for now without Vampire for a good bit. I was really enjoying it tonight. I even had one spot in a battleground that I think I'll include the clip after this, where I ended up dropping the entire green team with Vicious Death. Just 4 kills, dominoes, right in a row. It's a really fun build. It can be a really risky build. I have a good time playing with it. If you're afraid of death, if you feel like every time you die in PvP, you die a little in real life, this is likely not the build for you. It takes a bit of adjustment. It's not your typical PvP build, but like I said, it's not really something that I see very often, but I wanted to just show that you can make a light armor setup that does work, that hits hard, that can be very effective, particularly if you're usually playing with your friends in a bit more group play. Again, would recommend Burning Talons in that case. Okay, one quick thing that obviously I did not go over. I did not go over the champion CP. I have all of the passives that I'm able to take being at the CP that I am. So I'm just going to show you what I'm using on my bars. I have Fighting Finesse, I mentioned that before. I'm getting that crit damage, I'm getting that crit healing. I got Master at Arms for all the direct damage that we do. I got the single target boost, pushing that whip even further. That big juicy double whip damage just cannot be beat on this build. The Biting Aura for all of the AoE that we do. Again, usually I'm only running Molten Whip. This will, outside of Burning Embers, this just boosts almost every single damage you do. Boost your leap, boost deep breath. I don't need to continue on about that. I'm running the simple Boundless Vitality for more health, Fortified for more armor, Rejuvenation for more sustain, and Celerity so that we can pick up and chase after people a little bit, using Leap as a gap closer, using Cinderstorm to be able to slow them down a little bit. I believe over here on my green, less important, but just so that you can see, I got Treasure Hunter, I got Homemaker, I like my furnishings, I got my Disassembly, I got my Sustaining Shadows. This is probably the only one that really ends up making a difference in PvP. If you're using Vamp, you get into your sneak a lot more quickly, and this really ends up being more important when it comes to the gank setup than it really does in, you know, just having this straight up brawling bomber type build. But yeah, I spaced on the CP. That was my bad. I would like to wrap this up. Thank you all for sticking through this far and checking out my Battle Bomber here. It's been a really fun time learning how to use all of the editing equipment, and it was a big learning curve to get past. I appreciate a number of you who I know have expressed interest in this build, and I apologize for making you guys wait so long. It's, like I said, just been a big learning curve for me. I would like to throw out a thank you to Spot Hops and DJ Mats for always playing PvP with me, helping me discuss and work out a lot more of the details from this build. I would also like to throw out a shout out to Captain Crunch, who posted my gank setup of my DK to his YouTube recently. That build will also be coming here. Probably not as long of a video, but there's definitely going to be a Dragon Gank addendum to this setup here. Thank you again to each and every one of you who have expressed interest and watched this build video from beginning to end. I would appreciate you smashing like, hitting that subscribe, and continuing to inspire me to create more content such as this. I hope I've been thorough in explaining the nuances of my DK Battle Bomber. If there's any questions, if there's any comments, including but not limited to calling me an idiot for running light armor, for running a crit set, please feel free to. I'm not going to take it personally. I've had way too much fun running this set and running him. Really the only thing that could change that would be Zasa's lag and disconnects. Again, thank you for watching, and until the next video, good night now. Man, I like having Vampire, but dude, when it comes down to it, I really think just not having it with all... Oh, bombed him, bro. Did you see that shit?
No, I didn't.
Oh, bro, I just punked like 4 of them. You see all these bodies over here?
Oh, yeah.